How's it going, guys? My name is Vale. I also go by Colin, and I also go by Linko now, since I have a new alias and a new track called Light. On that alias, I'll put that link in the description. Merry Christmas. I'm going to be releasing this on Christmas because don't have anything better to do. I have some friends been asking for it, so I guess this is my Christmas present. Um, one big thing is I've been doing music for 6 years, and I really don't want to make myself feel like that I'm one of the best, but I feel like I know a lot more than a lot of people that want to go into this. So I just wanted to go over stuff in FL because a lot of people are probably going to be getting FL for Christmas. And if you are getting FL for Christmas, thank you for choosing a good DAW. Ableton's very hard. Logic is only on Mac, and I don't know, GarageBand seems interesting. I don't know what else you use. Reaper seems pretty cool though. But we are on FL Studio 20. We're on the newest update. I wanted to go back to one of my older projects that I already finished, and I was told to just kind of break down what a project looks like and kind of just how to analyze even demo songs. You can do this with demo songs as well, but one of the first things is instead of just going in and slapping stuff down and oh my god, this sounds good, whatever, I would actually like you to take a more organized approach. And we're going to talk about how to do that today. So there's a lot of stuff on the screen. Belt 20 makes it a little bit easier than 9, 10, and 11 were. It makes it a little bit more modern. It makes it look easier to look at. So we are going to just look at the basic stuff and what you need to know. The first thing, this big thing that's taking up most of the screen, this is what we call the playlist. Playlists is where your track is being composed. They do it by bars, or they do it by bars, and then you can kind of set. And default, it'll be based on the bar steps and time signature. But I always recommend I don't really use that. If you have been in band, been in music, you can use that. It's not something that's incorrect. I just like doing song time, so I know how much I'm actually working with when it comes to content-wise. Patterns are what make up a playlist. So if you can see pattern 1 here, this is just one simple beat. I feel like it might be a little loud for you guys, so I'm actually going to turn it down. Yeah, so you go into this, what they call the sequencer, and if you ever, or channel rack, that's what they call it. Not this, I call it the sequencer, but it doesn't really matter. If you ever are curious to know what the name is, hover over it. In the very top left corner, you can actually see under whatever the title of the name is, or if you haven't titled in the project, it'll just say under your name that's verified under the account, and it'll tell you what it means and what it is. So this is what we call the channel rack, and this is what actually makes the playlist. So we kind of have to like go up from a technically we would want to go from top to like a bigger sense of like a pyramid. So at the very top, we have like what a pattern would be in the channel rack, which is something very small. And as you add to it, it gets bigger, and we want to get it to the playlist, which is very, very big, and it's going to consist of a bunch of patterns. Not only patterns, but most of the time when you are doing sounds, when you're doing synths, when you're doing beats, all of that is going to be inside of patterns unless you're dragging audio in. So when you look at the playlist, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So let's talk about what all of it is and how we can identify stuff when you're looking at demo projects or looking at something and you just don't know what's happening. So anything that has a waveform like this is an audio file, whether it be something that was recorded instantly and put in, whether it's a sample that you can find in packs, and if you want to try out how to make this work, you can always test out sounds in the packs button over here. But if you hold on to it and you drag it, you can drag it in. And that's how we find a sample. That's what we call them samples, as just a vague term. These are samples. I know in some of the demo projects, like the demo one, they have some guitar, and that's actually in samples. So we can talk about automation clips, which is what this is right here. Automation clips is like if you ever heard of like different effects, like if you ever heard like how a radio sounds. Um, Radio effects you can put on something and then kind of turn it out, kind of like how we did here. And I can cut out parts of different sounds. Something that we draw. You can put little points here and kind of mess around with them and stuff. This is stuff we'll get to later. Maybe not even in this tutorial, but we may talk about it in a later tutorial when we actually start organizing my tutorials in order. So that's the three big ones. We've got samples, which are the ones with waveforms. We've got patterns, and we've got automation clips. Those are the three big ones that you need to know so you can start identifying what's happening on the playlist. The tracks are really just sort of a organizing feature. As you can see, this is not organized at all. You can use it in any way. There's no real difference on if I were to put this here or on track 2. It's just a way to organize your stuff, and I would recommend doing so because when you don't organize stuff like me, you get very confused on what everything's at. So we know what the playlist is. We know what the channel rack is. Now let's talk about the mixer. This is what you see. Oh my God, like somebody's mixing in a studio, and this is what you would see on a soundboard. 6 consoles. It's not really that confusing. Generally, they'll all be up to default. How these matter in the mix, you could just say, well, I want to automate the volume, and you can do that. But ideally, what you would want to do is if I brought in a sound and the channel rack, and like, what is this? This is the ambience in the background. So there's a volume button here that I can, fine tune and mess around with. But what we want to do is we want to track it to a mixer. And the reasons why we want to do that is and you can either control L to automatically send it to one, or you can move it somewhere else. Once we do that, mixer, you can double click on it if it ever does that. Is we can add effects. So I can go in here, and this is all my effects, and I can click something. And I can EQ, I can add reverb, I can add up tons of stuff. And it's important that you learn early to not mess with the volume knobs on the channel racks and to send it straight to the mixer and learn how the mixing interface works. And we will have videos on each separate thing so we can learn about them straight away. I'm just getting familiarizing everything with how a project looks like. But if you are wanting to take that extra step and you're just kind of like, oh, well, just teach me stuff, throw it off the list, then yeah, send it to the mixer. This is your master channel, is the one all the way docked to the left. All of these are your regular ones, and then generally you'll have some docked to the right, and if you don't, that's fine. We'll talk about that later. Generally, you want them docked here, and then all of these you can see will be linked to the master channel, which don't mess with your master channel. If you need to, when you're making music, turn it down, but never go above 0. So now we will talk about just this song in general, I guess. I released this one, I think it's September I released it. I don't know. It's lo-fi hip-hop. So we'll just kind of listen to a little bit of it so you can kind of get a feel for the track. And we'll just talk about some things that I did to make it sound cool and stuff just to familiarize yourself with the interface. Okay, so when it comes to lo-fi hip-hop, it's very low BPM. Generally, you'll take a sample, which I got this sample from a sample pack. And I have 2 copies of it because I wanted to take the bass out of the original and actually put it back in. There's a lot of concepts that's a little bit weird. And we'll talk about lo-fi in a different video. And just knowing how to stay on time is one of the big things that I would probably also learn. And you'll probably see that when you go into demo projects, is turn on the metronome and feel if you've ever, and this is for people who really don't know how to do music and are just kind of jumping in. I would keep the metronome on so you can just keep, like, figure out how to time stuff, like measure on. And it's going to be 4x4 for most of the bare basic stuff until you start getting more experienced. So then when I go to the beat, and that's not a loop. I made that one myself. I mean, technically you could say it's a loop if I wanted to transcribe it that way. But if I click on it and go to all, here it is. And it sounds kind of weird when it's, in the full beat, and you may not hear it when you first start looking at this kinds of stuff. But now we can listen to it. And just to clarify, these 2 buttons right here, one is song, one is pattern. Song means playlist, so you'll be playing what's in the playlist, and pattern is what you play in the pattern. So it all sounds in time. One of the big problems that I see when people first start doing stuff is just a mess of whatever. And, a lot of it is training your ears. I came into it just kind of, you listen to a lot of music, you generally know what you hear, and that's kind of what you go off of. And if you pull in a reference track, looking at tracks and breaking them down, that's one of the first steps to doing anything, whether it's lo-fi, whether it's just modern pop or hip-hop. Listening to other songs, dragging it in, and then just kind of copying what they do and try to get as close as possible is one of probably the best things that I didn't know I could have done when I first started, and actually really helps and makes people learn a lot faster. But a lot of it's getting used to your DAW. Generally, you got to know how to navigate. Later on, you'll know how to macro. Sometimes you'll get like different things. Like I have a Corsair mouse that I use for gaming because I game also. But some of those side buttons can do different things for you. And you'll see the growth in different hardware kind of come to your advantage. That's really the basics. So just learning where stuff goes. You can even just use, like, if I go into packs, go to loops and just take some of the loops out. And just mess around. Just throw them wherever you need them to be, and just kind of practice routing it to the mixer. Look at the FX and in the mixer, and when you figure out where it is, highlight it, go to your slots and look at the FX. And then not only that, but the slots matter. So try moving the FX that you put on something around and see how that affects it, because that can do things also. And make sure to just keep your master low. Turn your master down when you're making tracks. Only turn it back up when you're exporting to actually listen to your track at the very end without being in the DAW, because it hurts your hearing a lot. I noticed that as well. I'm just kind of listing off things that I should say, because this is not a very organized video at all. We talked about patterns, talked about the playlist, talked about the basic stuff. The browser here, which packs is where you'll see most of your basic stuff, drums, kicks. It's all organized already there for you. Use those defaults. Don't use the regular template. where it has the kick snare, because everybody knows those sounds and it gets kind of annoying if you want to start using them. So use the packs a lot. Send things to the mixer. Get familiar with the channel rack. And a lot of it is just clicking. Clicking a lot of stuff just helps you. Sometimes you don't know what you did, and then you can either try to figure it out yourself or go online and look up a tutorial on how to fix it or what it does. The only other thing is if you're using a plugin, this is Serum, very expensive plugin. If you're inserting a plugin, which I probably should have shown you how to do that, you can do one of two ways. You can either click this little arrow here, add one, and then you can click a plugin here. Or you could right-click something that's already in the channel rack, insert or replace, whichever you decide to do, and insert it. So let's say we add in, where's the default piano for FL? FL keys, which is the default piano one. If you're like, how do I even put, like, because if I do this, what does that do for me? Just adds in a little note. You can right click and hit piano roll. That brings you to the actual piano roll, and you can see there's ghost notes of what I've already done on there. So I can like add in stuff. So that's the piano roll. Probably should have brought that up. And I guess one last thing that's just sort of like theory type of things. If you ever noticed in FL, how there's darker, lighter, darker, lighter, darker, lighter. That's kind of how to highlight how your beat should go. So if you're ever doing something with beats, and you can see that a lot of my stuff are aligned, try to keep aligned. Whichever BPM you're at, which is right here, that's beats per minute. That's how fast your song or slow is. Fast or slow the song is. Keep within those lines. It's kind of just drawing between the lines, and then switch it up. Look up a bunch of music theory on beats and steps, how BPM works, what your favorite tracks are, and what those BPMs are in those tracks. And then kind of you could bring it in, and then just kind of like see the transitions in those tracks. Sometimes, depending on the intros and what songs you're looking at, you may have to. Well, this is where the song actually starts, and then you can actually see it line up correctly, because sometimes it may not do that. But otherwise, looking at the demos, really helpful. Really helpful to look at the demos and other tutorials. This is just me kind of like spitting things out because I wanted to introduce people to FL, and I don't really have a structure to my videos. I just kind of like, you know, that sort of thing. So I hope this video helps. I will start doing tutorials probably starting either later this week or next week. So whoever watches this, before I start making the tutorials, what kind of tutorials would you like to see first? And what would you like to see me explain? And if you want me to do certain genres, because I'll probably be doing regular tutorials on how to learn FL and genre tutorials at the same time. If you have any questions like that, let me know in the comments. And I'll probably be posting another video later this week. So, hope it helps. I guess I'm back into this whole YouTube thing because probably means a lot that I should probably start posting on my YouTube more. And again, I have a new song named Light by Linko in my description. Follow me on Insta. Follow me on SoundCloud. I have a Spotify and an Audius. Audius is the new thing. SoundCloud almost like 360'd and killed themselves. So, in a video game. So, thank you guys. And I will see you in the next video.